What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Kyle on the Call Sports. I'm Kyle Russo. On today's show, what I want to talk about is NFL free agency. As NFL free agency is looming, one of the most talented, skilled, and athletic quarterbacks in the entire National Football League could be switching teams and could be playing for a new franchise come 4 p.m. Eastern Time today. But before we get started with today's video, make sure to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Kyle on the Call Sports. Now, without further ado, let's begin. The quarterback in which I'm talking about is Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. And on March 7th, 2023, the Ravens elected to put a non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson. Essentially, what this means is that Lamar Jackson, come March 15th, 2023, Lamar Jackson and other teams in the National Football League can negotiate and structure contracts in which could potentially be in place if the Baltimore Ravens do not match that contract. Now, that begins today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time when Lamar Jackson can begin negotiating with other teams. And if, for instance, a team does offer Lamar Jackson a contract, the Ravens then have 5 days to match that contract. If the Ravens do match that contract, they will retain Lamar Jackson. If they do not, and he signs elsewhere, Lamar Jackson will be with a new franchise, and the Baltimore Ravens will be receiving at least 2 first-round picks. Now, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens have been discussing a new contract for what seems like the last couple of years now, and they've struggled to negotiate and structure a long-term deal for him to stay in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. Hence them putting the non-exclusive franchise tag on him last week. But Lamar Jackson, when healthy, is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. To go over in a sum his 5-year career so far in the NFL, very young player at the age of 26 years old, to go over his young 5-year career in the National Football League, Lamar Jackson has a career record of 45-16. Along with those 5 years in the National Football League, Lamar Jackson is a 2-time Pro Bowler, a 1-time All-Pro, and in 2019, he won the National Football League MVP. In regards to his individual passing stats, he has a career completion percentage of 63.7%. He's thrown over 12,000 yards, has thrown for over 100 touchdown passes, and what makes Lamar Jackson so versatile and one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League is not only his ability to throw the football, but to run the football as well. And in 2019, in that MVP season, he rushed for over 1,200 yards. And in the season after that, he then proceeded to run for over 1,000 yards in the National Football League, which is highly, highly impressive. In his career in total in these 5 years in the National Football League, he has rushed for over 4,400 yards and 24 touchdowns. Now, everyone knows Lamar Jackson is one of the most talented quarterbacks, let alone one of the most talented and skilled players in the entire National Football League. However, in these last 2 years, he's missed a total of 10 games, missing the remaining 5 games of the 2022 season and missing the remaining 5 games of the 2021 season. Injury has been a concern with Lamar Jackson, and what may be the reason why a contract hasn't gotten done with him so far to remain with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, obviously, we see in the free agency market, a lot of quarterbacks are resetting that market, getting huge, huge deals with a lot of guaranteed money. And with a player that has proven himself time and time again with an excellent quarterback record of 45-16 and has tremendous individual stats, giving a lot of guaranteed money to Lamar Jackson seems easy and seems warranted. But for whatever the reason is, the Baltimore Ravens have not seemed to settle on a contract with him. Now today at 4 p.m., Lamar Jackson will begin the negotiation period with other franchises. Now that leads me to my next statement, switching gears in the conversation. Where will Lamar Jackson play in 2023? Now, three teams that I've come across that I think that are good fits for Lamar Jackson if he does choose to leave the Baltimore Ravens and signs elsewhere include the Washington Commanders, the Atlanta Falcons, and maybe a hot take on this one, but the Chicago Bears. Now, let me get started with the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders would have to work out some money because I believe that right now they do have $19 million in cap space for the 2023 season. So they would have to restructure some deals in order to acquire a Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson would essentially join an offense that now features the likes of Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, who had an excellent rookie season last year, Curtis Samuel, having two extremely skilled and talented running backs in Brian Robinson Jr., Antonio Gibson, as well as a tight end in Logan Thomas. And did I mention that the new offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders is Eric Bieniemy, who's helped to lead the Chiefs to 5 straight AFC Championship games and 2 Super Bowl victories after he chose to sign with the Washington Commanders to be their OC after being with the Kansas City Chiefs organization. Now, Lamar Jackson would join a very, very talented team on the offensive side of the ball. On top of the fact, their defense as well is one of the more talented and skilled defenses in the National Football League, with players like Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and of course Chase Young, who missed a lot of time last year due to a recovering torn ACL, but seemingly will be healthy come this season, 2023-2024 NFL season. I think that would be a great fit. Now, yes, Lamar Jackson has had some talent over the years to work with on the offensive side of the ball with the Baltimore Ravens, like a Devin Duvernay, a Rashad Bateman, a Marquise Brown, a Mark Andrews, all very talented players. But in my personal opinion, if he joins an offense that's run by Eric Bieniemy, who's proven to be one of the most talented offensive coordinators in the entire National Football League, with offensive skill players such as a Terry McLaurin, a Jahan Dotson, a Curtis Samuel, a Logan Thomas, a Brian Robinson Jr., as well as an Antonio Gibson, I believe that that could be a very, very dangerous team on the offensive side of the ball for the Washington Commanders and in the National Football League in general if Lamar Jackson does sign with the Commanders. Now, another team on my list as a potential destination for Lamar Jackson is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons just recently actually signed, funny enough, Taylor Heineke, former quarterback for the Washington Commanders. And they also drafted Desmond Ridder last year. However, being that if you look at this year's NFL draft, teams like the Indianapolis Colts, teams like the Carolina Panthers, who just traded up for the number 1 overall pick, and the Houston Texans at the 2nd overall pick, will all be picking ahead of the Atlanta Falcons, which means what? What do all those teams have in common? They all need a quarterback. Now, not to say that Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke can't be those guys, but with a quarterback as talented as Lamar Jackson, and being that the Atlanta Falcons have $40 million in cap space at this point in the NFL offseason, I would think that the Atlanta Falcons would be interested in acquiring a Lamar Jackson. I think that with a team that has $40 million in cap space, has a young ascending offense with Tyler Algier as the running back who had a 1,000-yard rushing season in his rookie season this year out of BYU, in Drake London, who had about 800-plus receiving yards with around 70-plus receptions, with a very, very talented and athletic tight end in Kyle Pitts. I believe that a Lamar Jackson can be very, very talented in that offense if he does choose to sign with the Atlanta Falcons. Along with this team on the offensive side of the ball, the Atlanta Falcons have also re-signed Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry, 2 of the best offensive linemen in football, to help strengthen their offensive line and to help protect whatever quarterback is lining up behind center for the Atlanta Falcons in 2023-2024. So I believe the Atlanta Falcons should be interested as well in Lamar Jackson. Now, my final team that I think could be a possibility for Lamar Jackson, a little bit of a hot take, but I think it could be a possibility, is the Chicago Bears. And the Chicago Bears, I know they just traded back with the Carolina Panthers for the ninth overall selection in this year's NFL draft. Along with that pick that they received from the Carolina Panthers, they received DJ Moore, they received a first round pick in 2024, and they received a couple of second round picks, I believe. Now, the reason why I say Lamar Jackson may be a suitor for the Chicago Bears is because up until a week ago, there were question marks about Justin Fields and if the Bears were going to be selecting a quarterback with the first overall pick in this year's NFL draft, being how deep this year's class is with a Bryce Young, a CJ Stroud, a Anthony Richardson, a Will Levis, the list goes on and on. And holding the number one overall pick, even though they did have Justin Fields, some did believe that they would be selecting a quarterback. Now, I know that Justin Fields has proven himself and proved to be a very talented quarterback in this year's NFL season. However, with a player of Lamar Jackson's caliber, once again, as I alluded to with the Washington Commanders and the Atlanta Falcons, a quarterback of this caliber doesn't come available very often. And with a team like the Chicago Bears that struggle to find long-term quarterback success, I think they definitely should be interested in a Lamar Jackson. Again, a Lamar Jackson with a DJ Moore, a Darnell Mooney, a Chase Claypool. I know they are potentially in on an Austin Eckler after they just lost out on David Montgomery, who just signed with the Detroit Lions. They have a Cole Kmet, and they've made some great defensive acquisitions in a TJ Edwards and a Tremaine Edmonds. So I think that Lamar Jackson could potentially be a fit for the Bears. I know it's a little bit of a hot take, and I know that it's pretty unlikely, to say the least. But I think that it could definitely be an option considering they have the money and considering that there are question marks around Justin Fields and if he can be the legit answer for the Chicago Bears. Now, granted, he hasn't necessarily had the skilled players to work with, and granted, he hasn't had necessarily the greatest of offensive line protection, and granted, he's still very young. But once again, Lamar Jackson has won an MVP. He's been an All-Pro. He's a two-time Pro Bowler. He's only 26 years of age. And he's a proven quarterback in the National Football League that when he's healthy, he could single-handedly win you games. And so I think the Chicago Bears should definitely be interested, although it is unlikely. All in all, between the Baltimore Ravens retaining Lamar Jackson, between the Washington Commanders, the Atlanta Falcons, and potentially the Chicago Bears, all teams in which I just spoke about what teams could potentially be landing spots for Lamar Jackson, I personally think that Lamar Jackson is not going to be a Baltimore Raven and will be a Washington Commander. That is my prediction here on Kyle on the Call Sports. I think that's potentially the best fit for him. I think that's potentially the best opportunity to win more football games as, again, he's already a very talented quarterback, very athletic quarterback. But again, as we know, the AFC is loaded with talent and loaded with quarterback talent. If he moves to the NFC, he potentially becomes the best quarterback, if not the best quarterback in the entire NFC, which helps him out tremendously in terms of his success and which helps him out tremendously in terms of his ability to win and get to the Super Bowl and potentially win a Super Bowl in the National Football League. But that is my opinion. I think Lamar Jackson is going to be a Washington Commander. Now that'll do it here from me today, Kyle Russo, here on Kyle on the Call Sports. Once again, make sure to like this video. Make sure to leave a comment down below. And of course, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Kyle on the Call Sports. I want to thank you all for listening, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video here on Kyle on the Call Sports.